Well, welcome everyone to this very important gathering on Zoom. We appreciate you joining us in person. We know that there'll be other people watching us on tape delay, and we're so glad that you have decided to spend this time with us as we discuss one of the most important topics I think there is in our world, and that is the subject of peace and the prospects for peace in Israel and Palestine. My name is Maurice Salth. I'm one of the rabbis at Central Synagogue, the host for this program, and I'm pleased to be joined by my colleagues on this call. Rabbi Sarah Berman is with us, our shlicha, our Israeli emissary, Michal Abramov. Sorry, I'm working on how to pronounce it like you would in your family. I'll try to again, Michal Abramov. And also our colleague Marina Bardash-Nebro, our programming manager for adult programs, is with us today. And I want to thank all of them for really being behind the scenes and planning this and all our programs that are connected to Israel here at Central Synagogue. This is actually one of 3 programs under the title of Prospects for Peace, where we're gathering people who are actually in Israel and Palestine, who are on the ground working to bring more peace to this part of the world. And we are so honored today to have guests from 4 remarkable organizations, from the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue, Sarah Bernstein and John Moon. You have to unmute and pronounce your last name for me, John, properly.
Menayer.
Thank you, John. I'm going to write that down. From Women Wage Peace, Vivian Silver, welcome. From Woman of the Sun, Samar, and I'm going to ask you to pronounce your last name properly for me.
Yes, Samar.
And how about your last name, Samar?
Abedrobo.
Thank you. And from Parent Circle, Rami Elhanan, and soon we'll be joined by his friend Laila Al-Sheikh. So welcome to our panelists. Thank you for joining us today. And we've had preparatory meetings for this call, which you've given us your time for. And we're thrilled to hear about you and your organizations today. The program will last approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes. We'll start with myself facilitating a number of questions for our guests, and then we'll invite you to, throughout this call, to write your questions into the chat. And at the end of our call, we'll reserve time to ask your questions. I just want to ask Marina, when people are writing their questions, can you just explain where they would write them so we could have them for later?
Yes, absolutely. So you'll be able, if you're on Zoom watching us right now, you can put your questions into the chat. You can either direct them to everyone, or if you want them to be more private, you can direct them to myself or Michal. So my name is Marina Nebro in the chat, and Michal Abramov. And if you're on Facebook, just put your question in the chat there. I am moderating the Facebook comment section. So you'll see my little icon pop up there saying hello. And I will make sure that the panelists get to see your question and hopefully get them answered later on in the session.
Thank you. Well, for those of us that are very familiar with the Middle East, and for those of us that are not, we have a sense of the challenges, the deep challenges that exist for creating peace there. But what we may not have a sense of are people who are living there and working hard to bring about peace and connection. And so we have decided to bring a number of them here today to share their stories, to talk about the challenges they face, to share their hopes, and as we said to answer your questions. So we're going to give each of our panelists a chance to introduce themselves and their organizations. Some of them will also have a little video which we'll present so you can get a sense of the work their organizations are doing. And then we'll have a chance to talk about some of the challenges and hopes they have as they continue to do this important work. And hopefully we can find ways to support them and stand by them as we hear their stories and learn what they're doing. So we're going to start with representatives from the Rossing Center. Sarah and John, we're going to have you introduce yourselves, and then we're going to share a short video. So Sarah and John, I don't know.
I'll take it away.
Thank you.
Thank you very, very much. We are honored to be here with you this evening and delighted to be part of this event. So my name is Sarah Bernstein. I'll give you a little personal background first. You can perhaps tell from my accent that I'm not native Israeli born. I was born in the UK. I am a Reform Jew from birth and an active member of Kol Neshama synagogue here in Jerusalem. So I imagine that quite a few of you will have visited us, and I am married to a Reform rabbi here in Israel, so you may know him as well. And I have been working in the field of interreligious peace building for the last 23 and a half years. Before that, I was a lawyer. In fact, I came to Israel in 1985. And I would say that for the first 15 years I was in Israel, I certainly had no real encounter with Palestinians. We may have passed each other in the street. We may have, but there was no real contact. So that's one of the things. Whereas, of course, over the last 23 years, I've had very intensive contact and dialogue with Palestinians. Which has been a life-changing experience for me. And I'm honored to be the executive director of the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue, working to create change, to build capacity, to build desire for inclusive societies here in Israel, Palestine. I will hand things over to my colleague, John Mulnaya.
Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. I'll introduce myself. My background is a bit different to Sarah's. My father is a Palestinian Christian from the Greek Orthodox Church. My mother is English, Anglican Christian, and I went to an Israeli Jewish school. And my neighborhood is split half Israeli Jewish and half Palestinian Muslim. So oftentimes when people ask me, what is my identity, or, what are you, John? I usually say confused. Confused is a good word to describe who I am. And it's precisely because of this confusion, which has allowed me to get to know the different religious and ethnic and national communities here in the land, that I feel a deep responsibility for them. And therefore I have entered the world of interreligious peace building at the Rossing Center for Education and Dialogue. We'll just share very quickly a video that will kind of give you a taste of what you do, and then I'll say a few more words.
אני גרה בירושלים כבר 24 שנה. פגשתי רק יהודים, פגשתי רק דוברי עברית, פגשתי ערבים באוטובוסים בעיר העתיקה. אני הייתי די מבודדת מהסכסוך הישראלי-פלסטיני.
انولدت بالرملة. عملياً الرملة هي مدينة مختلطة، بس بالواقع هي مدينة مش مختلطة. كل المجتمع عايش لحاله، وأنا حابة أغير هذا الواقع.
My father's Palestinian, so I have a Palestinian heritage, but I went to an Israeli Jewish school. And very quickly I understood that both don't know much about each other, don't have much contact with each other. So I think the Rossing Center provides an alternative for those who seek a different future for ourselves and also for the future generations.
أنا كموجه بمركز روسينج إحدى الشغلات اللي بنشتغل عليهم هو الصراعات، موضوع الصراعات اللي هو إحنا بنعيشهم وعايشين معاهم.
המפגשים הם מורכבים, והתהליך של המשתתפים הוא מאוד מעניין. כי בעצם המפגשים לא עוסקים רק בלפגוש את האחר.
כשאנחנו לומדים על האחר, אנחנו בעצם גם לומדים הרבה מאוד על עצמנו. זו הזדמנות בשבילנו להכיר את המקום שממנו אנחנו באים, ולהכיר את המורשת ואת התרבות ואת הדת שלנו. אנחנו מושיבים ביחד קבוצות ודנים דווקא בסוגיות שבמחלוקת. רוב הפעילויות של מרכז רוסינג הם בתוך מערכת החינוך, עם תלמידים, עם מורים, עם מנהלי בתי ספר.
مع انه بكونوا ساكنين مع بعض جنب بعض بس اللقاءات مش سهله فيها كتير صراعات الاطراف تتجادل وتتحاور بس بنهايه الامر بيطلع مع امل من هاي اللقاء.
That's what we're doing at the Rossing Centre, but we can't do it on our own. We need your help. Together, we can build a better future for us all.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Marina. So just to add on to that video, to that intro video, we at the Rossing Center, we want to build the desire and capacity of Israelis, Palestinians, Jews, Muslims, Christians, Druze, Samaritans, whoever live in the Holy Land, to live in a shared and equal society. And I'll just say three points that I think that are very unique for the Rossing Center, and that is that we work within the education ministry, specifically trying to train educators, teachers, principals, when it comes to holding conflictual discussions in the classroom and dealing with racism in the classroom. The second thing is that we're trying to change mixed spaces to shared spaces. How do we, allow for the multiple identities and diversity to be shined and for people to be treated equally in all of these different mixed spaces in Israel? And the third point is that we believe in bringing religion into the conversation. Oftentimes, peace buildings activities can put religion aside. We believe that we need to bring all of our identities into the conversations. So thank you so much for listening, and we'll be able to answer some questions later on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, John, and thank you, Sarah. And again, if you have questions that you'd like to share with them, we'll be hearing a little more about them and their organizations throughout this meeting. But if you have initial questions, you can put them, you can write them to Marina or Michal at this point. We're going to now hear from friends that are with us from the parent circle, Rami and Lila, and here I watch also a short video about their important organization. Welcome.
I would like to suggest that someone else will present, and until then Lila will be able to join us, and then we will do it properly, if I may.
That sounds like a good idea, because Lila is on her way. We've spoken to her.
No, she's just trying to get in. It will take a couple of minutes.
Still, she's not here yet, so that's a good suggestion. So why don't we have a chance to hear from Woman Wage Peace and Woman of the Sun. Actually, that was really the order we were planning.
Yes, it was.
Sorry, my mistake for that. So Vivian, we'll start with you, and then we'll watch the video, and then Samar.
Okay, happily. Thank you. Thank you, Rabbi. I'm Vivian Silver, originally from Winnipeg, Canada. I made Aliyah 50 years ago. Hard to believe. Living for the first 16 years in Kibbutz Gezer. For the past 33 years, I've been a member of Kibbutz Be'eri, situated on the border of the Gaza Strip. While I've been a political activist for my entire adult life, living on a kibbutz on the border of the Gaza Strip makes peace and security an existential need for me, my family, and my friends on both sides of the border. And yes, I also have friends in Gaza. In 2014, I experienced 3 life-changing events. I turned 65, I became a first-time grandmother, and I entered retirement, leaving my last paid position as co-director of an Arab Jewish organization in the Negev. I began the process of assessing what I had accomplished up until that point and thought seriously about how to best invest my energy and commitment in whatever active years remained. Sadly, I had to come to terms with the fact that being active over the years in an ideological left-wing political movements had not succeeded to put an end to our never-ending wars. When Women Wage Peace was founded that year, we decided it would be a pragmatic movement that could possibly become a mass movement that could potentially bring about peace. I'm a member of the movement's Central Committee and a member of resource development and our international relations teams. I also volunteer in other organizations, including Road to Recovery, driving seriously ill patients from Gaza to Israeli hospitals. So what is Women Wage Peace? We're a proactive, pragmatic, grassroots movement founded in November 2014 in the aftermath of the 3rd war with Gaza in the space of 5 years. It was a war that caused women all over the country, most who had not been politically active in the past, to come together and say, enough. We must put an end to this madness. Today, we number over 40,000 diverse Israelis, Jewish and Arab, religious and secular, from across the political spectrum. Our premise is that peace and security are not issues owned solely by the left, and that Zionism is not an ideology solely owned by the right. We believe you can be pro-Israel and pro-Palestine, in other words, pro-peace. We're a one-issue movement with one goal, and that's to reach an honorable and bilaterally acceptable political agreement to end the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, with the full participation of women in all aspects of negotiation. We're actually looking to change the decades-old paradigm that we have been taught in Israel, that war is the only way to bring peace, to a new paradigm which claims that only a diplomatic agreement can achieve security for the people in our region. What are our strategies? First, to use careful, inclusive language to enable us to grow our movement with women from a broad political spectrum and forge local, regional, and international partnerships. To focus on the existential necessity to reach a political agreement rather than advocating for any one specific peace plan. And to those who say we're avoiding the issue, we say library shelves around the world are lined with numerous peace plans that have been formulated over the past several decades, costing millions of dollars. There's the Clinton Initiative and the Nusayba Ayalon Plan and the Quartet Initiative and the Geneva Initiative, this two-state solution, the binational state solution, one homeland, two-state solution, federation, confederation. The list goes on, but has sadly not produced the much hoped for results. What is clear is that the Palestinian and Israeli leadership has to negotiate directly in good faith and come up with a political agreement that is acceptable to both sides. Women Wage Peace will support whatever agreement is formulated by the two sides. So we work intensively with our sister Palestinian movement, Women of the Sun, showcasing that there is, in fact, a partner for peace. Together, we're harnessing public, government, and worldwide support for our joint Mother's Call for Peace, which you can see in the chat, hopefully, and which you'll receive by mail. We invest major resource in professional and planned media exposure to ensure we maintain a high public profile to keep the pressure on. So Marina, can you please show the clip now? And you'll see a great example of our joint work with our sister movement, Women of the Sun, who you'll hear from next.
بدي حرية بدك حياة بدنا نعيش زي نجوم السما ما هم زي بعض بس بيلمعوا سوا. You say shalom, you say salam, you say mahabba. In English it's love. You say tomato, I say tomato. Oh. Many people say this could never be done. Still here we are together, singing this song under the sun. Into the light, walk with me. Into the light where we can be free. Into the light, there's a place where we can be as one. Into the light, it's time to see. Into the light with simplicity. Into the light, you're a part of me. Far from the fire, fears and lies, keeping us both on the other side. Only one place seems to be right. Into the light. Into the light, into the light, into the light, into the light, into the
Thanks so much. I just want to say one more word. That day was the event that we staged when President Biden visited Israel, and we wanted to show him that there were women who are fighting for peace.
Fantastic. I love watching that. Samar, would you like to share a little introduction now?
Yes, sure. Thank you, Vivian, my partners in this. Thank you, everyone, for inviting us today. It's really a good chance to talk about ourselves. So I will introduce myself first and then talk about the Women of the Sun organization. My name is Samar Abed Rabbo. I'm 23 years old, Palestinian, Muslims. I'm from Bethlehem. I'm a refugee living in the Hesha refugee camp. So my father was one of those who witnessed the Nakba. He was born in 1943. So I have been related to the conflict, and I realized the conflict at a very young age. My father was always telling me stories about how he was forced to leave his land. And also growing up and living in a refugee camp made me realize more about know more about the conflict and experience it. And after I finished high school, I decided to study international law and human rights in Bard College, so I can know more about conflict, about situation, about Israel and Palestine, and everything is going on in this land, which was something amazing for me to understand more. And in my senior year, I got invited to attend one of the projects and programs with Israelis. At the first, I was hesitated. I wasn't sure if I want to join or not. But then I decided to go and to try and to listen to the other side. So my first experience meeting one Israeli wasn't easy, but it was important. And because I was always studying about the conflict and studying about the Israelis from an academic perspective, but meeting them in person and talk to them was very different experience. Then I decided to continue and have participated in many peace building dialogues and seminars between Palestinian and Israeli here in Palestine and then in other countries, which was something very helpful for me. It helped me to understand, to better understand the conflict and understand the other side, because before I have seen Israelis only as soldiers standing on the checkpoints, but after meeting them in person and talking to them as persons, as humans like us, it was a different experience. So just a minute. Sorry, my nephews. Okay.
No problem. We love hearing their voices, actually.
No, you don't. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I graduated last October, and I was like, as each one graduated from a college, I was looking for a job, and everyone around me was saying that. Everyone around me was saying that you cannot find a job with this major that you studied. Like, you studied human rights. We don't have human rights here, and I was like really disappointed. So I have heard about Women of the Sun organization, and when I knew about what they are working and what they are doing in the Palestinian community and also with the Israelis, I was really shocked and surprised that we have such an organization in West Bank and in Bethlehem, that they are doing this great job. And then I decided I want to go there. I want to see them. I want to meet them. It's not necessary that I will work with them. I want just to meet them, you know, because when I saw their name, like Women of the Sun, the first thing come to my mind was the light, the freedom, the hope, future. Like, I really was curious to know about this woman. Then I go to the organization, and I met Reem, the great woman. She's my mother, not my not my colleague in work. So she's like my mother. She's amazing. So yeah, I started volunteering in Women of the Sun to know them. I apologize. I'm sorry. Yeah. So after joining Women of the Sun, I started spending time with them, getting to know them better. I joined the activities with Women Wage Peace. I participated in many events like Zoom webinars and events in Jerusalem and Beit Jala. So it was really something amazing. I didn't expect this. And now I'm working with them as public and international relation. And now I'm working with Women of the Sun. So we are basically a very new established movement and organization. We are a non-governmental organization that was established in July 2021. From the name, you can recognize that we are working with women, specifically with women, Palestinian women, from all ages and from all over Palestine, including West Bank. We have a group in Gaza. We also work with the Palestinian women living in Israel, and also women lives outside of Palestine. We're trying to reach like all Palestinian women. We don't want to be limited. We want to reach like all women. We are trying to, our main goal is to empower women, to enhance them, to educate them, and to make them to become peace activists and peace builders in their communities, in their families, with their families, their friends, with themselves, and also with the Israelis. Because like, if you want to create peace, we don't want only to work with Palestinian women. We want to work with women from both sides, Palestinian and Israelis, and that's why we are having our partnership with Women Wage Peace, and we have our project, the Mother Schools, and we focus specifically on mothers because like we know that women are strong, but mothers are even stronger because they are caring about their children. So basically, yes, this is in general, and I know we are still new, but we have done so many things that we are trying to reach more women from both sides to make them more engaged in politics, in peacemaking, because we cannot make peace without women, because we believe in women and in the power of women.
Yes. Well, thank you, Samar. We're going to hear more from you. It's so powerful to hear from both you and Vivian and your organizations. Now we have a chance to hear from friends from the Parent Circle. Lila, welcome. We're glad you're here. And I know you and Rami are going to talk to us about your important organization.
Thank you. And first of all, I want to give my apologize for being late because I've been in other dialogue meeting in Tel Aviv and just I reached house now.
Good,
But
no problem.
this is what we like to do, to talk to all the people that they have that ability to listen to us or even invited us. And this has become like a passion for me to spread the message. And this is one of the most amazing message to have peace and reconciliation with the Israelis. Maybe we are one of the most amazing organization around the world because we are the only maybe organization that didn't seek for new members, because to be a member that meant that you should be lost one of your beloved ones, and we didn't hope that anyone lost another one. So my name is Layla Sheikh. I'm from Bethlehem. I am 45 years old. I have 5 children. And I was born and raised in Jordan because my family originally, they are from Bethlehem, but my parents went to Jordan because my father was a teacher and he went to teach the children in the camps in Jordan. But after that, the war was started in 1967. And during that time, the Israeli government closed the border. So my family lost their citizenship as Palestinian and they became Jordanian. So maybe my childhood was very normal, but maybe the unique thing that my father have thousands of stories about Palestine. So I love Palestine from what I heard from my father. And when I met my husband and came to Palestine in 1999, because he is originally from Bethlehem, for me, it's become like a dream come true to come back and live in the same place that my father spoke about for many years. And it's a dream come true for me. And I was really so happy, and especially after we have our children. But that happiness was ended 11th of April 2002 when my son died at that day, because the Israeli soldiers prevented us from taking our son to a hospital for more than 4 hours, because at that day they came at night and they threw tear gas, and because he's too young, his lungs couldn't hold it. At that time, I was filled with hatred, anger against everyone, but the most, maybe the most people that I hate and be angry of the Israelis, because for me, all of them were responsible about his death. Because when you're filled with hatred and anger, you can't really think clearly about the situation around you. And at that time, I wasn't thinking to take revenge, because revenge will never bring my son back. But at the same time, I take a decision not to have any kind of relationship with any Israeli person. But after 16 years, I met one of my friends who participate in one of the projects in the Parents Circle, and he started to convince me to participate. In the beginning, I was really refused because I didn't believe that I could meet with people who were responsible about the death of my son. But once when he invited me to a conference in Bethlehem for the Parents Circle and I heard their stories, that was the first time I looked at them as a human like me. The first time I felt that we share the same pain and the same tears, even if we had a different circumstances, but we're still human, and nothing worse than losing a child. And no one could understand that clearly unless someone be in the same situation. So after that, I participate one of the project called Beryl Narrative Project. And this project, one of the most amazing projects in our organization, which give opportunity for both sides to sit and to talk about everything. We met for 8 times. We have 2 professors from both sides who spoke about the history of the 2 nations. We went to visit Yad Vashem Museum to learn about the Holocaust, and we went to visit a Palestinian village was existed before 1948. It's not about comparing and say who's the worst, who's the better, who's first and who's last, but to understand and to learn about each other. And we have many activities during that project, but the first activity they asked us to speak about something happened during the conflict affect our life. And that was the first time I spoke about what happened to my son. Even between me and my husband, we didn't spoke about what happened. So that was so hard for me, even after 16 years. It was like to open the wound again, bring the memories back, the pain, the anger. But an Israeli woman came and she started to apologize. And she said, yes, I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you from my own people, I'm a mother too. I could understand your pain. I could understand even the word that you couldn't say. And she started to cry and she came and hugged me. And that was the first time someone really talked to me about that, or even let me feel that he understand my pain, or even he care about that. So after that, I decided to be a member in the forum, start to give lecture inside Israel, Palestine, travel around the world to spread the message of peace and reconciliation. And that was so easy to convince people and to tell them about peace and reconciliation. But I asked myself, did I really do everything right? And I believe in everything I did. And then life gave me another test. Before like 3 months, 4 months, in Jerusalem, we have other meeting with other NGOs. And after I spoke about my personal story, a man stand up and he started to talk about his personal story. I know that man from 3 years, but that was the first time I heard him spoke about his. So he mentioned that he served in my area, and he mentioned that he prevented a Palestinian car which have sick children from going to a hospital. Then it's become so hard for me. I felt like someone slapped me in my face. Thousands of questions start to come up in my head. In my whole life, I wasn't think that I will face one of them. So that was so hard for me. In the beginning, I didn't know what to say or what to do. Then I started to cry. I couldn't breathe. And then one of our colleagues asked both of us to go outside to speak. And then he started to say that, and he said, it was so important for me to talk in front of you about that. And after that, my son became sick. And when I tried to take him to a hospital, the guard stopped us because he had many questions to ask, which doctor, which kind of, a lot of questions. And then he said, then I realized what I did to the Palestinian, and he quit from the army. He was a high officer and he jailed because of that. And then he established other organization with other Palestinian who are ex-fighters, and they start to work in the ground. Then I said to him, look, that was so hard for me to hear what you're talking about. And if I know that part of your story was existed and you didn't tell me, I will never forgive you about that. But I will forgive you because you've been so honest. You have that courage to talk about that part of the story. I know this is hard for you and for me, but to be honest, this is much more important for me, and I can forgive you now. And this is the most important thing. This is the reconciliation that we talk about. It's about respect, about understanding, about learning how to put our effort together to change this reality, because our children deserve the best, and they're children. And we didn't want them one day ask themselves, and they said, what my grandfathers did. And we didn't want them to say, oh, they didn't do anything there, just sit beside and watch everything. No, we want to change this reality because God created us in this world to love and to live, not to kill each other without no mercy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lila. Grateful for you sharing your story with us. Rami, I don't know if you want to speak, you want to show the video first, I'd give you the option.
You can show the video first.
Okay. Let's do that, and then we'll get to hear from you.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה. لا نريدكم هنا.
לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا. لا نريدكم هنا.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
لا نريدكم هنا.
עופו מפה. אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
אנחנו לא רוצים אתכם פה.
Rami.
Every time I listen to Laila, I have tears in my eyes. She's my sister, this Palestinian terrorist. She's probably one of the closest persons to me on earth, much closer to me than many of my own people, many of my own family. And what makes us so close is the price that we both have paid as an outcome of this conflict. My name is Rami El-Hanan. I'm 73 years old, graphic designer by profession, retired, a Jew, an Israeli, and before anything else, I'm a human being. I'm a victim of the Israeli upbringing system. I'm a brainwashed Israeli. The first time I met Palestinians as human beings was when I was 47 years old, 1 year after I lost my 14-year-old daughter in a suicide bombing in Jerusalem. And this meeting changed my life. For the first time, I saw Palestinians as human beings, not as terrorists, not as transparent people. And this meeting changed my life. From then on, I devote my life to go everywhere possible, to talk to anyone possible, people who want to listen, and people who will not listen, to convey this very basic and very simple message, which says we are not doomed. This is not our destiny to keep on killing each other in this holy land of ours forever. And we can change it. And we can break once and for all this endless cycle of violence and revenge and retaliation. And the only way to do it is simply by talking to each other, because it will not stop unless we talk. So this is what we are doing. Laila, my sister, and the 600 families of the members of this unique organization, we have one common denominator which unites us. It's not a psychological support group. We are not there to hug each other and kiss each other and eat hummus together. What unites us is the understanding that we lost our children to this abnormal situation in which one people is dominating the other, the Israeli occupation. And we do our best in order to fight it. We bang our heads against this very high wall of hatred and fear that divide these two nations today. And we put cracks in it, crack after crack. And through these cracks, a little light comes in. A little light can drive away a lot of darkness. And we have to put those walls down because the alternative is very painful. And we have an enormous ally on our side, which is the power of our pain. You know, the power of pain is tremendous, very much similar to the nuclear energy. And like this horrible energy, you can use it in order to bring darkness and destruction and pain and death to people. And you can use it in order to bring light and hope and warmth. So we go around the country, we go from high school to high school, we talk to Israeli kids, we talk to Palestinian kids, and we tell them that our blood is exactly the same color, that our pain is exactly the same pain, and our tears are just as bitter. And if we who have paid the highest price possible, if we who have every reason on earth to want to kill each other, if we can call each other brother and sister, anyone can, anyone should. Thank you for listening.
Thanks to you, Rami, and to all our guests. We're listening to you. We're listening to every word. that each of you has said, and it's with great gratitude that we appreciate what you've spoken already, and we have some additional questions to ask you. First, for the next few minutes, just we have a lot of us, so that's a bit of a challenge on this meeting. But if you can briefly share, just maybe 1 minute, starting with you, Rami, and then Samar, and then one person from each of our other organizations. What is a challenge that you're facing? I know you've already shared some of them, but maybe an additional challenge that you've been faced with in your work to wage peace.
You know, when we get into a high school class, me and Laila and my other brothers and sisters, they are not as polite and receptive as you are. In many ways, it's like walking into the open mouth of an active volcano. The earth is shaking. There is a lot of anger, a lot of emotion. There is a sea of blood between those two nations. And the response that we get from most of these kids, it's the first time ever in their life they lay eyes on an Israeli and a Palestinian which are not fighting each other. And this creates the earthquake, and the earthquake creates the crack in the wall that we are looking for, a little question mark, a little doubt. Situation on the ground is getting worse by the minute. We have a fascist government in Israel today, which are doing everything in their power to block us, to stop us from working, to limit us. We have a right-wing public, which are increasing by the demographics of Israel in the near future. I don't see where we are going. We have a very impressive resistance to this, all these demonstrations. But no one is talking about the big elephant in the center of the room, the big elephant, which is called the Israeli occupation, the domination of one people over the other. And wherever you look at it, no matter where you put it, no matter how you will put it under the carpet, it is there. This is the source of our bitterness. This is the source of our pain. This is what caused us losing our children. And this is the main issue which most of the Israelis ignore.
Thank you. Samar, a brief explanation of a challenge that you've faced in your efforts.
Okay, so first of all, being a woman is challenging. And working in this field.
Why do you say that?
You know, like being born as a woman in Palestinian society and under occupation is not an easy thing. You face many challenges from family, from society, and from different aspects. And not only about being a woman, but also about working in the peace field and being a peace activist or peace builders. It's something really challenging. I refer this to the normalization issue that we are facing from the Palestinian society. Like many people think that we are doing something wrong and we should not be doing what we are doing and working with the Israelis. We understand this. We understand why they are saying this. We cannot force someone to do the same. But in the same time, we are trying to tell the people, to let them understand that we are doing this because it's really important for all of us, for both sides, for Palestinians and Israelis, to at least stop the violence. I'm not going to say in the conflict, and I have too much hope because it's not an easy thing, but at least to have less violence and to live more peacefully. So like doing something that many people are disagree with you, and even your community and even your people, this is really challenging. Like for me personally, not all my friends know what I'm working. I can't tell them because I might be misunderstood. But what I'm trying to do is to tell my friends, to tell the people around me, to tell everyone that I'm working this for a goal, for a purpose, to to have peace, and that we can do this. But we need support. We need more people to join us and to do the same. And this is what we are trying to do, to have like example of women, of Palestinian women who want peace. So we can have more, like if people see what we are doing and believe in us, they will do the same thing. So the issue of normalization is really challenging and complicated. But we will not allow this to stop us, and we will continue our work. Thank you.
Thank you. Vivian, you shared some of the challenges that you've been facing, but I'm curious if if you want to elaborate on them or add another.
Yeah, there's the widespread belief that there's no partner on the other side. And we've been told that over and over again. And, I ask my friends, who is the partner on our side? Are we willing to move ahead with peace? That's a big challenge. And then the message that we get from our governments that we're fated to unending wars. Why? Why would we be fated to this? It's up to us to make the change. And because we're in constant turmoil in Israel, peace constantly gets removed from the agenda, especially now in the face of the present government's push for the judicial overhaul. The priority of hundreds of thousands protesting in the streets, like Rami said, is to stop the proposed reform, but it is not to deal with the conflict, the ruling of one people over the other, the terrible loss of lives on both sides. So it's up to Women Wage Peace on our side to keep peace on the agenda. That's a challenge.
No doubt. Thank you. Sarah or John, one of you add a challenge, and then we'll flip the question, and for the other of you to answer in a moment.
So I will take the I'll take the challenge question. So I completely identify with the challenges faced. We all face many of the same challenges. I think at the Rossing Center, one of the main challenges we are dealing with is the question of the Israeli education system. Israel often talks about Palestinian education system educating Palestinians to hatred and violence, but we have problems in the Israeli education system. As I'm sure most of you know, we have a segregated education system between all these different streams, each of which have different curricula, and trying to one of the tasks we have set ourselves is trying to work within the education system and with the education ministry to create an education system that educates for a shared society and educates for a peaceful resolution to the conflict. Because at the moment, there is no systemic peace education in Israeli schools. Israeli schools are designed, certainly if you look at the secular and the Orthodox schools, not the ultra-Orthodox or the Arab schools, but the secular schools and the Orthodox schools are designed to get kids into the army and believing the government line about the only way forward is military might, and security means military might. Nobody is suggesting that security means something. I mean, that's not true. Women Wage Peace is suggesting that security means something other than military might. But in the mainstream discourse, that is the understanding of security. So how do we get our education system to educate children to live in a shared society and to not educate children in the Jewish sector with ideas of Jewish supremacy? So we've been working very intensely with the education ministry. under the last government. You may not be surprised to hear that under this government, they're trying to undo the work we did with the last government, but to put a strategic plan in place to educate for shared society. I have to say that the, strategic plan and education ministry don't really go together in the same sentence. They don't really know from a strategic plan. But at least to get something more systemic into the Israeli education system, anti-racism training, peace education, shared society education, something to break down these barriers of fear and separation and hatred that prevent us getting to know each other and finding a different way forward. So that's a main challenge that we are addressing.
Your thoughts reminded me, Sarah, and I'll put it in the chat, of a Jewish leader who had a suggestion for a vision of changing how we might think of fighting with each other. The prophet Isaiah, who talked about taking weapons and converting them into plowshares. So this is not a new idea, but it is obviously concerning to think that there is not a modern day Isaiah in our governmental leaders, at least as you're describing it, voicing the same vision as Isaiah did thousands of years ago.
Absolutely.
Just it is profound to hear your voices and to see your partnership with each other today. And that there's tremendous hope that you give me. I want to ask you, or at least some of you, because then we want to provide our participants who are joining us to answer some questions, but just briefly share something that brings you hope, because we want to hear that too. Something that's giving you hope. And we'll start, maybe start with you, Lila.
The things that make me, or give me hope every day when I look to the eyes of my children. And when every day I have phone call or someone knock on my door, I pray for God that I didn't want to hear that news again. I didn't want to lose another one, not just my children or any other family members or anyone that I know, or even the people that I don't know, sorry. So what gives us hope that we want to change for the best. We want them to live a normal life every day. We want them to live a better life and have a life that's so different than the one that we had, that every day we are afraid. We didn't know what will happen to us. Sometimes when I left my house, I didn't know if I will return back home or not. So to live in a fear like that, to live in unknowing and with all these bad emotion, will affect you physically, not just mentally. So this is hard to live a life like that. And maybe I didn't tell you that when my son died, I dreamed that there is a white dove stand on my shoulder and say to me, "Mama, don't cry, I'm so happy." And after I become a member in the forum, I remember that dream. I know he's happy with God because he just 6 months old when he died. But at that time, I didn't understand why he came as a white dove. But after I become a member in the forum, I start to understand this is like a new mission that God chose it for me, because he didn't want his death went without achieving something. And I believe that this is the thing I want to really do, because we say in Arabic that the things that didn't break you down make you stronger. And we take that strength from our pain. We didn't want to, I don't know how to say that, but to take the worst thing, we want to take it and make it something very beautiful. Yes. Because to take revenge, it's something so easily, but we like to go to the hardest way. Thank you.
sorry, something that might bring you hope. And thank you, Laila, for your words.
Okay, so honestly, this Zoom meeting gives me hope that there are like many people are joining to listen to us and to hear stories and to know about our work and our organization. This is really important. So for me personally, hope like is related to women, and as I belong to a family full of women, I have too many sisters. I have 16 sisters. And they are supporting me, and that's why I believe in the power of women. And also when I go to work, I see these great women, strong women who are fighting for peace, who are doing a great job, and who are like never lose hope and always resisting, always fighting, and they have this energy and they believe in themselves. This is hope for me.
Thank you. Vivian.
Okay, I actually listed a number of things, but I'm going to cut it just to one message that I want to share with you that we received from Women of the Sun the day that the last Israeli election results were announced. As you can imagine, some of us Israelis were very, very discouraged, to say the least. And then we received the following message that I'll read to you. And I quote, "We were created for the sake of peace, and we will remain for the rest of our lives fighting for this message. We are strong women, and we will continue together until there is peace." And that came from Women of the Sun. 2 of them are on this call. That's what gives me hope.
Thank you. That's beautiful and powerful, and indeed tremendously hopeful. John, do you want to share a message of hope? And then after that, I'll just let Michal know we're going to ask Michal to share a few of the questions for our group.
Well, I do think that with the recent protests, to a certain degree, there's a potential for a change of discourse when it comes to the conflict. I'm not saying that the protests are exactly where I think a lot of us would hope the protests to be, but I do think that there might be an opportunity to change the discourse here in Israel, but also changing the discourse abroad, I think is a huge element as well, which I think is also beginning to happen when it comes to this conflict. But also when people ask me about hope, they think of it as an end result, right? There's hope because you believe you can achieve a specific result. But I think that there's hope in action. And that is to say that whether or not I believe I can solve the conflict, I believe I'm doing the right thing. And I think that in moments of desperation, doing the right thing is hope in itself. And if I can also take it theologically, if I believe that God is God of peace and God of justice and God of liberation, there is no gun or tank or government that can take those attributes away from me and my relationship with God.
Thank you. Thank you for all these words of hope. And one of the hopeful lights in our community is Michal, who has chosen to dedicate a number of years of her life to be here in New York with us to help address issues like we're addressing today and many more things surrounding Israel. Michal, why don't you share a question with our honored guests? Just as when you do answer the questions, just ask you to try to be as brief as possible, because we only have about 10 minutes left. Go ahead, Michal.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Salth, and thank you so much to our panelists. I personally have just a list of questions, and hopefully, we could have had a week-long seminar with each of you and just to dive into different issues and different questions. I will bring some questions that we got both on the chat here and from Facebook. We actually received a lot of questions, and some of you did address it. the question of the current judicial reform, and really everything that is happening and the protests that are happening. Do you think, in your view, is this a momentum for change? And if it is a momentum for change, the question is asked is, who is the unifying voice at this time? Which I think is very interesting, because each of you sort of addresses different populations, different groups, all within the question of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But is there something that unites you all? Is there something that sort of shows you all that in the protests that we're having at the moment can lead to a new change? And I think John and Vivian both referenced it. So if you would like to elaborate on it a bit.
Did you like John to start with maybe a short answer to this question?
Sure. So with these protests, at the moment, the majority of the protesters are not necessarily, advocating also for a change of policy when it comes to the Palestinian-Israeli conflict or the Israeli occupation. But inside the protest, there's another protest, and that is precisely of Israeli Jews and some Palestinians who are calling for the protesters to see the connection and the link between what happens in the West Bank and how it gets brought back into Israel proper. So there is a tiny movement that is protesting the protests, and I think amongst certain Israelis, especially the younger generation, there is this perhaps a switch in thinking, but time will tell in terms of how that will actually play out.
Can I just jump in with one more word about that?
Yes, please, Sarah.
But as you know, I've been going to these demonstrations week after week after week. I tend to go to the anti-occupation bit. There's an anti-occupation section in most of these occupations. First of all, in most of the demonstrations. First of all, I see signs that section is growing. And Rami and Laila, I think the fact that there were so many people at the joint Memorial Day ceremony on Monday night or whenever that was, is a sign of something, and of there is a bit of a shift. And I noticed on my Facebook feed there were a significant number of people who wrote, "This is the first time I've attended that ceremony," and then how moving they found it. But so I think there's a shift, and I think there's a tiny shift, and my challenge to all of us as activists is how do we take this moment and pivot it and shift it to addressing the much more fundamental questions of Israel's democracy? Because I think if we lose this moment, we're not going to have another one for a very long time. So how do we do that shift to make them look at the broader democratic questions that face us?
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, John. We have only the time for one question. There's two great questions, so I'm going to leave a question in the air, and then I would like to have our question, the second question, answered. But I do want to encourage all of our members and all of the people who are zooming in to reach out to these organizations and hear more and learn more about them, because a lot of questions are coming in about your views of solution. What is a solution that you see? What is the peace, and how would you define peace in saying it? And I feel like within 3 minutes is not respecting your time for these answers. So I would like to ask the last questions, and then Rabbi Mo will wrap up. The last question that we have asked here is, how can we make a difference? How can we as American Jews, how can we as the people listening to this conversation, how can we help? What can we do? What is our role with your wonderful work?
I'd be happy to answer.
So Vivian and then Rami.
Okay. So first of all, I assume that your synagogue comes to visit Israel, either on organized trips or not. And we would be more than pleased to have you meet with us and have our message distributed to many, many more people. And the same I can say for Women of the Sun. It's possible to meet them as well. We are trying to get 1 million signatures on the Mother's Call, which is in the chat and which you'll receive. Please sign the Mother's Call. We're having a major event in the fall, in October, during Chol Hamoed Sukkot, where we are trying to get 5,000 women from all over the country and the world, Palestinians and Israelis, and our supporters, to come together on the Dead Sea and voice our call for peace. It would be wonderful if the rabbis, I understand you have 11 rabbis in your synagogue, and your congregation would come and join us. It would be amazing. And of course, financial support, but that we can all say the same.
You, Vivian. Rami?
Of course, Vivian is right. But I would like to have a broader angle and tell you that standing aside while a crime is being committed is also a crime. We don't want you to be pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. This will not help us. We don't want you to import our conflict to your society. You have really enough problems of your own. We demand of you to be pro-peace and to be against injustice and against this ongoing situation in which one people is dominating the other. This is the essence of the problem. It must be solved. It can be solved. And I will finish with the message of a Jew. And I'm a proud Jew with the utmost respect to my people and to my history and to my tradition. And I will tell you that ruling and oppressing and humiliating and occupying millions and millions of human beings for so many years without any democratic right is not Jewish, period. There are no two ways about it. And being against it is not anti-Semitism. If you get into an argument, you can quote me.
Hear, hear, Rami.
Thank you.
And can I just add that you can also put pressure on your government.
Absolutely.
Your government is a partner in this ongoing injustice. So you know, and now more than ever, we need you to raise your voices because this is the moment. This is the time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I just want to ask if it's possible to my colleagues, Marina or Michal, if we can place the links to the organizations of our guests into the chat one more time before we close, for any, just to make it easier for those that are watching this gathering to be able to learn more and connect with our panelists after today. And I want to thank Rabbi Sarah Berman, our Director of Adult Education, and Marina, who has very much put all the pieces together for today, and Michal, who has been a partner in this, and the other 2 Zoom meetings that have been planned beyond this. One has already happened. You can watch it on delay on our Facebook page, and one that will happen next Thursday. I strongly recommend that you consider joining us for that next week as well. And I mean, to all of our panelists, I just cannot say enough how meaningful and important this has been. Sarah, John, Vivian, Samar, Rami, and Lila, to you and your colleagues and your organizations. The reason we had this session is because we at Central Synagogue are very much wanting to advance your cause and advance the cause for peace in Israel and Palestine. And we take it seriously as part of what we talk about here with regard to Israel. And you've given us tremendous information and inspiration to continue learning and figuring out ways to help advance the cause for peace in Israel and in Palestine. I couldn't help but when you were talking throughout the session to just, see in my Zoom box the reflection of my art piece that's right here. That's you might be able to see it's an egg. It's actually a Israeli artist who took an egg and cracked it, and then you can see its attempt to be repaired by a pin. And it's a rather unique piece of art. But as you were speaking, I couldn't help but to see it and say, and Rami and others, Sarah, all of you in your own way said, this perfection that we might dream of, this hope for everything to be easy and simple, that, a perfect egg, that's not possible right now in Israel and Palestine. But that doesn't mean we can't keep working towards finding a way to repair it, even if it doesn't seem like a very clear repair. Maybe it's a safety pin that's trying to repair an egg, but in doing that, there's actually art and beauty in that. And we just I can just speak for myself. I felt hope in hearing you today, and you gave us some beauty in the challenge that exists. And when you actually see yourselves and meet you and see actual people who are fighting hard to create a more peaceful, more loving society in Israel and Palestine, it gives me tremendous hope. And even though the egg may not be perfect, that's okay. We can find ways to create beauty and peace with what we have. And thank you all for doing that in your lives all the time, and for sharing those stories with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
We're going to say to you shalom and Laila Tov and good day. Come visit us here in New York. When you're here, you're a welcome and honored guest forever now on here at Central Synagogue. And to all those that are joining us to watch, we welcome you too. Members of our synagogue, guests who have joined us, we welcome you to join us here at Central Synagogue with your feet, with your screens. Going forward, we want to be in conversation and connection with each other for days and months and years going forward. For now, I'll say goodbye and thank you and shalom.
Thank you.
Thank
Shalom.
you.
Thank
Shalom.
you.
Salam.
Bye. Take care.